Good evening and welcome back to the One Celtic Fans View this evening. My. What a very interesting interview by Brendan Rodgers today, wasn't it? The media. When are they going to ask him about an actual game that we're playing tomorrow night? It's always the same, isn't it? There's been various occasions on this that we've seen over this season. And generally, it's interviews last around about 22 minutes and then ask about 2 minutes worth of questions about the game for tomorrow. Anyway, Diane, I was just having a laugh and I was like, that doesn't make 100%. Just the way it is. Anyway, good evening to everyone who is in the chat. The conversation isn't going away with Kieran Tierney, but there is breaking news tonight that a Celtic player has left Celtic and he has had his medical. Stephen Welsh has completed his medical with the loan move to a Belgian side. Don't know why he wants to go and play in Belgium. But anyway, there's other breaking news tonight. There is other breaking news when it comes to a Celtic player. Arne Engels, who spoke to the media today. Arne Engels is... Atalanta have come back and they're looking at Arne Engels. Having missed out on Matt O'Reilly last year, they never put a bid in for him though, did they? They never put a bid in. It was Atletico Madrid that put a bid in, but then they put a bid in the summer for Matt O'Reilly. And they only went into they only went to 20 million, didn't they? It was only 2 million more than what Atletico Madrid bid, and Celtic wanted 25. Anyway, they lost out to the English side for Matt O'Reilly, and it looks like they're going to come back in. They are looking at Arne Engels, according to a Scottish media paper. Arne Engels says it was not nice to be hit by a coin at Ibrox. The Celtic midfielder has reflected on his attack at Ibrox. He struggled with the incident on the pitch, but the Belgium international was hit just above the eye as a coin went flying from the stand, and still nothing new about who the person was, even though there's a video doing there. And in fact, we've still got the video on here. Do we still have the video browser? Yeah, the video's still there. So yeah, there's the guy there that was throwing the coin. You can actually see him. The cursor's not on here, but you can see the guy circled. So if we could point him out, why has there not been a knock on the door to say that, by the way, we want to speak to you regarding a little offence that happened at Ibrox, an assault on a Celtic player. He'll probably go down as a legend for having that charge against him. Oh, I got done for hitting a Celtic player on the pitch, man. Fucking 10 pints for me down the Bowser Amara. Anyway, that's enough of that nonsense with them. Arne Engels speaking to the media. Just double check the audio, that's fine. I was going to say Bernie Engels. Arne Engels, the 21-year-old, says, it was a bit sore, but it's okay in the end. It's not a nice experience to be hit with a coin. It says you're just playing your game, you're just enjoying football, you're at your work. It wasn't a really enjoyable night. Sometimes it's like spilling a beer all over you, but really throwing a coin and hitting you on the head, it's never nice and it's never good to happen in football stadiums. You're there to do a job, said Arne Engels, which is true. And I hope somebody goes into that guy's work and smashes him off the head. You never experience something like that. I've never experienced something like it. It says people who throw coins, you need during your work. It's unthinkable. It is unthinkable. And anyway, he went on to say, you always need to switch on, and that's why you're a football player. You always need to think about the next situation and what everyone's telling you. You need to think about the next situation on the pitch. And when you get something coming from the sidelines and the terraces, I mean, it's not the 1980s or the 1970s, is it? It's 2025, for goodness sake. And with the CCTV that we have, in the modern game in the stadiums, and the fact that Sky Television managed to point out the guy, and there's a video going around, you know where he sits in the stand, but still there's been no arrest and nothing coming out of Ibrox to say that a certain person has been banned for life. No, and even the Scottish police have not even released a picture. But they did release a picture just days before that game of Celtic fans that they wanted to speak to just weeks earlier. Yes, just weeks earlier. Anyway, it says the last 10 minutes you play the high level and you still need to play. That's it. End of the game. We move on. It's the next game, and we do move on. So Brendan Rodgers, I do not need to bite my tongue. And we're going to listen together for the full Brendan Rodgers interview, because I think it's the Scottish media. I don't see the fascination in the past. KT left to Celtic. James Forrest has become the only player to play one player of the club. Bobby Lennox played. Yep, he did that as well. Danny says, "Oh well, I'm just saying that I know that KT is coming back." I've just seen it on my phone. You've just seen it on your phone. Has the SFA doing anything about the coin throwing? Will Sevco be punished? There's nothing being in the media, is there? It's all sweep under the carpet. It's only Celtic. It's only a Celtic player. But hey ho. And anyway, let's listen to Brendan Rodgers, because it's a 16-minute interview, and he wasn't really asked about the game, was he? And I want to dissect the questions that come in from the media and the way that they were asked. And was it a bit of baiting by the media?
Yeah. Still, like, James is the only one that's out, but everyone else, all good.
Last time we heard from you,
we're going to listen together.
Celtic fans to maybe trust you and trust the team a bit more in games like the St Mirren one. Is that going to be required again, potentially, this type of fixture that you face tomorrow evening? Perhaps that level of patience? I
think a lot of the games over this period of time, they're, especially when you're going to come up against teams that are
last time
designated to sit in deep and close the space. So yeah, it's definitely an important part of the idea getting into games such as these.
Why is it so important? Do you feel like can it spook players, even though you can try and get your message across? Is that the ultimate fear, that they become anxious and don't do the things you want them to do?
Yeah, listen, for me, it's always my job. Really, I always see it is to create, an atmosphere that players here, both in the training centre and at Celtic Park and beyond that, can flourish and play in the style of which the fans demand here. So, and that there is all about a positive mentality and that connection between both. So yeah, listen, Celtic fans are amazing for the team and for the players, and when everything's right up there, there is going to be moments, and like I say, over the course of the coming months, where like I say, teams will be sat in deep, and you might not be able to always play forward, and you have to come out and restart the attack again. I never asked the team to play around the houses and not be penetrative, and I think you see that in the goals that we score and the chances that we create. So, but no, it's an observation. I think everyone has the right to air their emotion and their feeling, and that was my feeling from the weekend. But now we look forward.
What do you expect the reaction to be like tomorrow, Brendan, from the fans after your comments at the weekend?
No, the supporters will support the team.
Have you had to speak to Greg Taylor at all in the aftermath of that game? Is that something you've had to address with him personally? How is he?
I have spoke to him. Yeah, he's absolutely fine. Yeah,
of course he's fine.
Chat with Greg.
Of course,
just on a number of things. So, but yeah, he's good to go.
Was his nose fine as well? Because you came in after he said he nearly broke his nose. Was that in the game?
Yeah, he had a bite. That was obviously a part of going in to make sure he was okay, and he obviously rushed in to get some treatment. So, but yeah, he's fine. He's trained today, so he's good to go.
So Brendan Rodgers made out that that Greg Taylor rushed up the tunnel because he was fuming, he was livid with the Celtic fans, but really he went up the tunnel because he had a sore nose. And so Brendan blew the whole situation out of. I told you he did. This is Brendan's doing, having spat the dummy out at that last interview. He's a little bit more calm and relaxed today, isn't he? I think he had his Snickers before he came on to the interview.
How easy or difficult is it for the likes of Greg to ignore the noise when you're into the last few months of a contract, the crowd and whatnot? Is it easy for him to turn off to that?
Yeah, I think Greg's clear on where he's at. For me,
He wants
he's
to
a
leave
dedicated Celt. You know, he's been someone that's, nearly 6 years. I think tomorrow if he plays, it's 200 games.
Right. Here's a question before we go on. How many games did David Turnbull play for Celtic? I'll use gurus out there. David Turnbull. Two seconds. Can't find the right stats for Turnbull. Many games did he play in total? That just gives you a year. Anyway, it's obviously not as many as Taylor. How long was he at the club? Transfers. David Turnbull transfers. No, because he only joined Motherwell in 2020, didn't he? Alright, fair dues. Fair dues. But we still managed to get £3 million for, this is saying 2.2 million, 2.3 million. Anyway, we still managed to get money for him, and I think the issue is, I'm just trying to, even back from Free Derry. 102 said Stephen Johnson, 207 says Robert. That's quite a difference. Quite a difference. I think he's 4D chess, Brendan, honestly. Anyway, let's go back to listening to Brendan and the interview and the silly questions from the media.
As a Celtic player, which is a lot of games.
200
He's a brilliant
games.
servant, and I hope he can continue to be that throughout my time here and beyond. So yeah, I think you see from his performance level, his concentration, his commitment to the team.
Right, Brendan's now repeating himself, right? If Greg Taylor is going into the last period of never, ever, I mean, they're either, why doesn't Brendan just tell the fans, we know the contractors are running out, right? So is there a contract offer on the table by Celtic? I hope somebody asked him that. And has Greg Taylor accepted or rejected the offer? It's as simple as that. Never mind this. And Brendan Rodgers will turn around, oh, I don't know the ins and outs. It's with the guys upstairs. Celtic fans want the answers to that, and it's as simple as that. It's not brain surgeon questions that we really want answers to. And the hiding behind the I don't know the ins and outs of the contract talks. You're the manager of the football club. Turning around and saying that you want him to stay, fine. You must know the contract situation. If you do not know the contract situation with what's going upstairs, well, what's really going on at the club and who's running it if you're not in charge of the football side? And
to the club is always there, and there's always a little backdrop for every player and manager, but he copes with it really, really well, and you see that in how consistent he is in his performances.
Would you think now that it would be better for a quick resolution to this matter, considering the noise that's going on round about it for all parties involved, if there was a quick resolution to this contract?
Well, that is, you always want that, ideally, but I'm sure Greg does as well. So, but yeah, I think it'll, you know, between the club and he and his representatives, they'll find a solution to it, I'm sure.
He'll be sold.
But in the meantime, I'm here to support him and his performance level. And yeah, as I said, he's absolutely fine with it.
He's fine with it. So there's Brendan just sweeping it to the side again, saying, look, I'm sure between the club and his representatives we'll come to a solution. Brendan, you said that was you said the same about David Turnbull, and David Turnbull was sold under your feet. So are you the manager in control of Celtic? Do you have full responsibility for football department? Are you in control of the football department? Because after your little spit in the dummy out and your continuing the continuing talk about that's between the guys upstairs and his representatives, you say that you have a conversation with the player. A manager says to a player, how much money do you want a week? Right. I'll tell the guys upstairs that that's what you want, that's what it'll take to get the deal done. That's what a manager does. You don't leave it to the HR department to then flog out a deal. If you want the boy as a player, if you want him as a player, and you've sat and had a conversation with him, you say to him, how much do you want a week? Right. I will say to the guys upstairs, if we can get somewhere in between, say 2 or 3 grand either way, are you happy to meet that way? He either says yes or no. Brendan Rodgers is hiding what's really going on with the transfer stuff, if you ask me.
You know when managers speak about fans, you know how fans can sometimes take it. Do you hope the Celtic fans realise and appreciate that when you're speaking about them, that they kind of see where you're coming from with it?
Listen, I can never
Brown Warrior, it's everything to do with the fans.
To anyone. What to say, what to think, what to sing, what to not. But I can, I know what my own personal value is, and that a lot of it is based around respect. So, but for me, listen, the Celtic support is an amazing support base. What they give the team and how they support the team and how they travel with the team. So I'm not going to start to tell people what to sing, but like I said, for me, it's just that bigger picture around this period of games, in particular, where pitches are a wee bit lumpier than what they normally would be, and the game might be a little bit slower than what it can normally be. So that isn't always the fault of the players. That's just sometimes how it is. But for us, it's that support that can really help the team in what is a really, really grueling period for us.
Right. So Brendan is now saying that Nicholson, let's read between the lines for this then, right? So we're back to the bad old days, and Michael Nicholson is a chip of the old block. He'd be as well been Peter Lawwell's son. He was Lawwell's right-hand man for years, right? We didn't like the way that Peter Lawwell would do contract negotiations. He was a shambles at it. Let's be fair. He was a shambles at negotiation. We lost out on far too many players. And is it now going down the same way? Have Celtic reverted back to the Peter Lawwell trading model? That's what we need. For saying it's nothing to do with us, we as fans back the board, we back the team financially, we back it to an unbelievable amount of money. Look at the merchandise that we're buying year in, year out. Look at the money that we spend on season tickets. If Brendan Rodgers is saying that it's the guys upstairs, watch out for this transfer window, because if a transfer window does not go the way it wants, and Brendan Rodgers spoke about the fact that they were a bit lackadaisical in their negotiations and the speed of transfers during the summer window. There's only one thing that will stop Brendan Rodgers signing a new contract, and that's for Celtic to go down the same route that they went down in 2019, in 2018 when they didn't get a certain player in for Brendan Rodgers. And I think if that happens again, Brendan Rodgers will not sign a new extended contract, because he doesn't believe that this current Celtic board, that are the same Celtic board, and I don't want to start berating the board because they've done fantastically well for us, but Brendan Rodgers come out and said, look, I'm at the age now where I don't need to hold my tongue. If you don't need to hold your tongue, tell us about what's going on with the contract talks, and name and shame the ones that are trailing their heels with it, because somebody needs to.
Brendan, you've been around the block too often now to be shocked by anything. I've been surprised by the scale of the debate that the comments provoked since the post-match.
I have to be totally honest. I haven't seen anything. We played the game, we recover, we train, and then our focus is primarily on the game. I think it's obviously in your guys' world.
Yep.
It's not in my world, and I'm everything is open for debate now. win, lose, draw, whatever you say. So no, it's not something that I get attracted to really. My focus is really on the team in our next game.
Exactly. He's not going home and jumping onto Twitter and jumping onto Facebook and Celtic forums and reading all the comments, and he's certainly not going onto YouTube and reading the comments on the Celtic media pages.
Can you understand, Brendan, when you say everything's open for debate? Can you understand some Celtic fans who, we had them on the show last night replying to your comments saying...
Oh, come on, Super Scoreboard, get a grip. That's like the fucking dumbest of dumb fans that phone that shite.
Their singing of the Kieran Tierney song, they felt was separate to the Greg Taylor issue. Can you understand where they might be coming from?
Listen, I said before, and I repeat, everyone has an opinion. You know, everyone has an emotion. They can, you know, people can say what they think, and that's okay.
Is the overarching message, Brendan, that at this
They're
particular
not going to let it go, are they? The media smell blood and they're going for it.
point in a gruelling sort of festive season when the games are coming thick and fast, it really is the onus is on everybody to pull together and be moving in the one direction. You don't need schisms or distractions. It needs to be all kind of channeled.
We're currently 7 minutes 23 into an interview that's meant to be about tomorrow's Dundee United clash. We have not had one question. Is everyone fit? The very first question. The opening question every single week by the media. Is everyone fit? And then they went in for the kill, the Scottish media. The Scottish media have taken control of the narrative, and I hate it when they do this. And Brendan Rodgers needed to try and deflect it and be more objective and take control of the narrative and start talking about the game. Ultimately, that's what good managers do. That's what Fergie would do. Do you know what I mean? That's what the top managers bat this shit to the side. There's nothing to do with the game tomorrow. It's in the past. You can't change the past. You can't go back and say, oh, that never happened, right? And there's no use still talking about it. It's over and done with. We've got a game tomorrow that's another must-win game.
Yeah, I think I've said that a number of times in my time here, and it's just reinforcing really that the unity is the strength of this football club. So, and as a manager, and as I said, my priority since the day I walked in here has always been the players and the supporters. Then that's the connection which is always most important, and if that consistency there, then of course you get great results. So I think we've seen that, and every now and then, like I said, it's to observe, it's not to tell anyone what to think, say or do, but certainly when we're together, we're a much stronger club.
How much do the players take from positivity from the stands? I mean, we talk about it all the time, but does it really have a energiser? We give them something extra?
Well, 100%. It's everything. You know, if you're in a really positive ground with a great energy, then that can give you so much. You know, you can get into your flow. Everything is just much more positive. So yeah, listen, I've worked in stadiums out with here where you play passes in the game, and you know the team will recognise. You know, I remember my time at Swansea where you'd make a backward pass because you couldn't go forward. The crowd can recognise what was happening. They clap, they square the pass, then you play a forward pass and it changes the point of attack, and it's recognising the game. And that feels good for the players. They don't see that as a negative, it's to start a new attack. Because everyone wants to play forward, everyone wants to play vertical football, but it's impossible to do it for the whole game. So when there's that positivity around the stadium and that recognition of that, then of course that really aids the players on the pitch, and that's where they gain the energy from. But I repeat, the players get an amazing energy from Celtic Park. I've said it so often, especially this season, we love playing at home. We love being there. So this isn't, you know, it's not a big issue at all. It's just an observation from a moment in the game. And we move on, and we and the players will get an incredible support, as we always do.
Ultimately, does the team's performance on the park determine the atmosphere in the stands? You know, you go out and perform to your maximum.
What the fuck?
The crowd responds to that, and you dictate what they made in this?
Yeah, it's a bit of both. It's also can also.
What does? I don't believe that he's asked that. Has he ever heard the atmosphere at Celtic Park when the Champions League music comes on? Has he ever heard the stadium at Celtic Park before a derby game? Has he ever heard it in a Scottish Cup game? And has he ever heard that most games, to be fair, before a game even starts, the atmosphere is there? I understand what he's trying to say, but this is taking the narrative of trying to say that there's a thing between the fans and the team, and there isn't. It was a group of fans singing a Kieran Tierney song. I didn't even know there was a Kieran Tierney song. I forgot about it if there is. And we're now 10 minutes into it, and the manager is still getting asked about and they're trying to just make a little bit of. They're trying to get a little bit of a headline to say, yep, there's a split between Celtic and the fans and the manager, when ultimately there isn't.
Be determined by the opponent and what their game is. The point being is that you're going to play. There's two teams in the game. there's two teams, and we cannot forget that. We're not playing against mannequins where it's 11v0 when you're just playing through them and then you score loads of goals. It's there's another team there that will be normally set up very, very well and very well organised by really good coaching staff and managers. So that's the first challenge. The challenge then is to then break through that. And if you can break through it in the first 20 minutes, it's great. But you won't always do that. And if you don't, then you have to keep the penetration, keep the speed in the game until you can break that resistance. And very, very few times this season we haven't been able to do that. And but in the main, if we don't break through it early, my message is there's no need to fret. There's no need to panic. It's the game. It's the opponent maybe making it really difficult, or you may missing chances or whatever.
Do you know what Brendan should have said? Do you know what he should have said? Brendan should have sat there and said, you can look back at the history of Celtic. This is not a new thing. You look back to the Tommy Burns era at Celtic and how many goals were scored late on in the 1990s under Tommy Burns. Going up through the managers since Tommy Burns, we'll forget about Liam Brady and Lou Macari, and then an ex-Celtic captain. If you look at the way that Celtic have always played, Celtic have always won with late goals. This is the way that Brendan should have took control of the narrative. He should have sat and he should have went, Celtic not scoring early is never been a thing. You've looked back the history of Celtic Football Club and the amount of late goals that we have won games with. We're known for it. We know that when we get into the last 10 minutes of a game, it's Celtic time. You know that there's a goal going to come. And I think that Brendan could have done a little bit better today with just putting that narrative across and reminding the Scottish media that Celtic have had vast amount of success over the years, scoring late goals in every single competition in Scotland.
But yeah, it's a little bit of both.
John Barnes.
There's a number of things that determine, and normally it's the opposition making it really difficult for you, or maybe sitting deeper so there's not the space, so you spend more time with the ball trying to make your connections to break through.
It's also important to you, Brendan, that you feel able to speak your mind with these things, to say what you think. But the Greg Taylor thing about the kind of way the team's playing is you're kind of saying what you think. Which
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to beat about the bush when I'm talking about the bush. So,
well, if it's not got a bush,
I'm experienced enough to say what I think and what I feel, but not in a derogatory way to anyone. I'm not, as I said, I'd be the last person. Coming back to here, and everything that I put myself through to come back to here, I'm so happy that I came back here and love my life and love my job here. But it's also important to be able to say what I think. Sometimes you're paid not to say what you think, but there are moments when you have to, and I'm at the stage now in my career, in my life, where
And that's the headlines that the Scottish media will be running with all over tomorrow morning. Every single rag will run with the headline that Brendan Rodgers doesn't care about the fans and that he can say what he wants. That's the narrative that the Scottish media, they've waited 12 minutes, 35 seconds to get their headline, and they got it.
I don't need to bite my tongue.
Is it quite confusing because whether you were aware of it last season when you came back, people were saying, "Oh, he didn't seem like quite the same manager he was the first time around," and now you say what you think, and it's like, oh, you can't win in some ways, man.
Well, you can't because then you've got an ego or something, or it's listen, it's the modern world, so.
Do you know what I'm really disappointed in this is there's Celtic media people in there. And why didn't they jump in and trying to change the narrative and still talking about this ongoing bullshit? Let's just call it what it is. 13 minutes into it, Celtic media should have jumped in and said, what's the tactics going to be tomorrow when, for instance, when Dundee United play the low block, is there going to be any change of formation? Ask a question like that to change the narrative and get away from these paid journals that have got one thing and just to get that one headline, and they got their headline, fair enough, but I just think that the Celtic media guys could have been trying to jump in and say, is you going to try and change formation with the low line block tomorrow? Simple.
It's okay. We just got on with winning football games. We win games, play well, and that's what's important.
It illustrates how important you think the message is that you were prepared to stand up and say it, because the easier thing for you is you say.
They're just asking the same question in a different way every single time, the Scottish hacks.
With the history, the recent history and all that, the easier thing for you to do would be to say nothing. So that perfectly illustrates how important you think this is, that you're prepared to make a stand about it.
Yeah, I think
here we go. That's trying to break a headline and get a bit of a story out of something that.
I've mentioned it sporadically over my time here, but just because I know what the power of this club is when everything's together and that unity's there, and also what it feels like for the player to be on there and getting that amazing support, and I can understand this off the back of the Rangers game and not playing anywhere near what our level was, so I can understand that wee bit of fret and a bit of and bit of worry, but no, it's something that I think is very, very important. As I said, my priority with the players is the performance level, and that comes from training and it comes from the games and creating that atmosphere which the players can thrive in. So that's all I'm here to do, is to manage and be the best that I possibly can be for Celtic in my time here, however long that is, and of course I will stand up for that. And then once the time's done, I can step back, wait for the next manager to come in, support him, and look forward to seeing 60 games of high intensity football for 95 minutes every week, and I will be really happy.
What's in it for Dundee United? The last time you played them, actually, how well organised they are. It's not 11 mannequins. I mean, they really, under Jim, they seem to have really got their act together.
Very good. You see where they sit in the league. They clearly are getting results and performances and doing very, very well. Made it very difficult for us up there. It was difficult conditions and everything else, but still we couldn't make the breakthrough that day. But I would like to think this will be a totally different game. Playing at home, availability of players, good performance at the weekend, and now look to back it up.
In terms of signings, Brendan, has there been any progress?
Hey, there we go. 15 minutes, 21 into an interview, and then he was asked about signings. 15 minutes out of a 16-minute interview. Not once has he been asked about the Dundee United game. Not once has he been asked up to this point about transfers, but it's only now, after they've sat and got all their headlines and all their negative headlines that they're going to go out with tomorrow, and according to the media tomorrow, Brendan Rodgers' days will be numbered at Celtic, and it's anything to try and make sure that Clement gets time and gets bought time to get in. Anyway,
The ones you're looking at.
a few little bits and pieces going on, Robert, in the background, both ins and outs. So, but nothing to declare as of yet.
So that's interesting. He's admitting that there is players coming into Celtic. It's the first time that Brendan Rodgers has spoke about the fact that there are players coming into Celtic at this transfer window with hope, and it's the first time that he has mentioned it. And then obviously the ones that going out is the Stephen Welsh has went through his medical today, so that's the one that we'll be talking about there. Lewis Palmer is he thinking that that's maybe going to happen, but it's the first time that he has admitted that there are contract negotiations with players that on their way into Celtic.
What's that, Stephen Welsh, do you expect that to go through the Belgian loan? And would that create a vacancy maybe for a B-list player in your Champions League squad, maybe a Dane Murray or someone?
Well, we've brought Dane back for that purpose. You know, he's a young player that I really thought highly of. The bits I've seen him, he obviously had horrendous spell with injuries, and we sent him to Queen's Park, where Callum and his team and the club done a brilliant job with him to ease him after a long injury period out. We virtually trained every day and got really good coaching, and was at a fantastic club there. So the whole idea then was to bring him back. Stephen's a player that's pretty much been a part of the fabric of this club for so many years. He's one of the guys that helps create the culture because they've come through the system. But there also comes a time when they need to look at their own career. So there's a possibility that he'll go out on loan. It's not confirmed yet, but
it is confirmed because he's passed.
But for him to go out and then come back, it's quite an easy transition, really.
That's an interesting way to finish that, because it was only last year when he got Stephen Welsh to sign that contract extension that he went on about the fact that Welshie is a guy that he really likes. He's a player that he really likes, and he's part of the club. And he sees a bright future for him. Interesting. And he's now talking about the fact that, yep, this looks like it's the end of the Stephen Welsh story. Looks like it's the end of the Stephen Welsh story. Celtic learned their lesson with Mo Johnson. Never count their chickens till the deal is watertight. Of course, do chill, Paul. I mean, it's the modern game. They're not going to talk about it until it is a done deal. And nobody talks about it until it's a done deal. Anyway, I did ask what you think the score will be versus Dundee United tomorrow. I personally cannot see Dundee United scoring. I hope I'm proved correct with that. And I give you a various choices. You know, I'm allowed to put 4 down, and so you've got 4 choices. Will it be 1-0 tomorrow, 2-0 tomorrow, 3-0 tomorrow, or 4-0 tomorrow? And I'm going to end the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It has been 128 votes, and 3-0 seems to have came out on top on 44%, 2-0 32%, 4-0 17%, and 1-0 5%. It's going to be interesting because they are going to come to Celtic Park to frustrate the living hell out of us, and just like they did up in Dundee. So it'll be interesting to see what that scoreline is tomorrow. I wonder if Celtic will have had any contact from Atalanta, any talk from Atalanta with the Arnie Engels situation. And would you sell? You didn't have 5-0 in the poll. You can only put 4 in, JT Boy 67. You can only put 4 in on this. The big question is, would you sell Arnie Engels? So yeah, that's the big question that needs to be asked, but not tonight. The headlines that's coming out of Celtic tonight is the fact that Celtic Star has been tracked by Champions League rivals. That's talking about Atalanta. Nico Kuhn has had his name mentioned a few times, but Celtic have it all about Dundee United tomorrow. Yes, it's all about Dundee United. Back to Celtic Park for the second game of the season. Celtic host Dundee United and another clash at paradise as the Tangerines visit Glasgow tomorrow. Brendan Rodgers will lock horns with Jim Goodman once again as their goalless draw in Tannadice last month. Join Jerry McCulloch and guest in the build-up from 7:15 on Celtic TV, Celtic Part Time. The match kicks off at 7:45. Make sure that you join me 1.5 hours before the game so we can get the team as it is announced by Brendan. Pay-per-view is available to all the supporters in the UK and Ireland. They can watch the game live on Celtic TV pay-per-view platform for just £5.99, while Celtic TV subscribers can enjoy a discounted rate of £4.99. There you go. Excellent value subscription options with an annual subscription for the UK subscribers for just £50. There we go. Excellent. The best of Celtic TV coverage with stunning 1080 HD, bringing it closer to the action than ever before. History makers, an evening with Henrik Larsson and the huddle, etc, etc, etc. Yep, Celtic really going for it with the TV stuff. Anyway, Chris Fraser, you get the last comment. Some of our supporters need to remember the early 1990s. They do that. It was an absolutely fantastic time if you're a Celtic supporter. It was brilliant. We had coaches like Lou McCarry. Yes, we had Lou McCarry, who was once a Celtic player, to be fair. And Lou McCarry, oh, Jesus. Don't even talk about the football that Lou McCarry played. Yeah, it was a great time. Absolutely fantastic. You know nothing about being Celtic fans unless you were there during the Lou McCarry years. Anyway, on that note, the Scottish media have Tim Papers. Kaiser is live in Swansea. Lol, is he? I want the last comment, says Stuart Ramsey. You have it. You absolutely have it. Stuart Ramsey has just got the last comment. And on that note, have an absolutely fantastic evening to all you Celtic fans all around the world.
Lit. Roll up to the party, roll up to the party, roll up to the party, roll up to the lit. Roll up to the party, roll up to the party, roll up to the party, roll up to the lit. Roll up to the party, roll up to the party, roll